Hello everyone, Mark here, Mark's Max Muscle, and today we will be discussing the history of the NABBA Mr. Universe title. This is, of course, not to be confused with the IFBB's version of the universe, which was established nearly a decade after NABBA's, so it is a much longer and richer history, of course. In fact, the very first ever NABBA Mr. Universe competition was held in 1950, and this was your winner, Steve Reeves. You may take note that the trophy that they gave him was a Sandow medal, and that is what they use today for the Olympia. In fact, it was first used back at the turn of the century when Sandow himself had a competition and awarded a medal of himself for the first prize. So a lot of history goes into that actual statue. Even some people claiming that the trophy that Reeves is holding and that he won in 1950 was the exact same statue that they awarded the guy back in 1901 for Sandow's event. But it's very hard to say if that is true. And for those of you who really know your history and thinking, Mark's Max Muscle messed up on this one, the first NABBA Universe competition was in 1948, won by John Grimmick, and Steve Reeves, in fact, placed second. Well, you're kind of right. It was back in 1948, but the NABBA was not established, and the only reason they had this event in London was because they had the Olympics that year. So it was, like I said, not even a NABBA event, and there was no universe in 49, and it was established in 1950. So 1950, Steve Reeves was, in fact, your very first ever NABBA universe, but realistically, John Grimmick was. I guess John Grimmick was your first NABBA universe. And if you check certain lists, it does say that John Grimmick was your first NABBA universe champion, 1948. A little tidbit about this event. Steve Reeves, after he lost to John Grimmick, got on to the mic and treated the audience to a song. Oh, my love. No, I'm just joking. He stated for the record that John Grimmick was the most perfectly developed man and the best physical specimen of all time. Basically, he was saying that, hands down, he lost to John Grimmick, and nobody at the time could have defeated this guy. So he did, in fact, retire prior to 1950. He retired in 1949, John Grimmick, so he never got to realize his full potential as a NABBA Universe champion or to see how many times he would win that title. But I think as an act of respect from the NABBA organization, they actually took the silhouette of one John Grimmick and made it into the NABBA symbol. You see that? That's John Grimmick. So another little tidbit for those of you who did not realize who that is supposed to represent. Good old Grimmick, one of the best bodybuilders of all time. Actually, nobody ever beat this guy. Nobody. But anyway, on with the video, and 1950, the established NABBA universe, Steve Reeves. And I mean, two of the most famous and greatest bodybuilders of all time. Those are your first two champions. I mean, what a launching pad for a great title. Steve Reeves, of course, he was not met without opposition in 1950. In fact, Reg Park, there's still an argument till this very day that Reg Park was better than Reeves. And if I'm not mistaken, I did a comparison between the two. And of course, Steve Reeves did win, but then he retired. And both of these guys were young. I think Reeves maybe had 2 years, if that, on Reg Park. And he retired after he defeated Reg Park. And of course, Reg Park went on to develop much bigger and much better. And that just goes to show you that Reeves, obviously he could have did the same thing. But he elected to go to the movies and ask for Reg Park. He placed second in 1950 and he returned with a vengeance in 1951. And he became the NABBA Mr. Universe champion. And it was development, the likes of which the bodybuilding world has never seen before. And in my estimation, in my opinion, if it was close in 1950 between Reg Park and Steve Reeves, Reg Park would have destroyed Reeves in 1951. Food for thought, it was Robert Duranton. You can actually see him there in the background. That's better shot of him there. Robert Duranton placed second to Reg Park. So it looks like Reg pretty much cleaned house. But then he retired, and much like Steve Reeves, he went to the movies. But unlike Reeves, and as we will see as this video progresses, Park does in fact return to the NABBA Universe stage. So on to 1952, and here is where it gets interesting. The Mr. Universe Championship was won by a man by the name of Mohammed Nasser. Mohammed Nasser, no disrespect meant to Mohammed, but it's clear to me that Reg Park was a superior bodybuilder in every sense of the word. But anyway, on with the interesting part. This year, they decided to throw in the NABBA Pro Universe, and for this video, we'll just call it the NABBA Pro, and we'll stick with the Mr. Universe for the original one, which is the Amateur Universe. But they call it a Pro, but there was no money awarded. It was won by Juan Ferrero, and food for thought, the short class was won by Monahar Ayik. I believe Nick Strength and Power actually did a video on this short, very short, powerful man. Very interesting dude from India, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, yeah, 1952, they threw in the NABBA Pro, and like I said, no money was awarded, so why call it a Pro? Anyway, 1953 gets even more interesting. We have Bill Pearl, who was awarded the Mr. Universe, and like I said, guys, we're just going to be calling the Amateur, or the very first Universe title, the Mr. And Bill Pearl, he was met with some opposition. You may take note. The guy in the center, the light-colored tights, it's Sean Connery, the guy that became James Bond. I'm shaken, I'm not stirred, pussy galore. A book hit me in the head. I blame myself. Muff, 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 muff. Anyway, yeah, he placed very low in this event, did Sean Connery. But I think he made the right move. Pretty sure he made the right move, becoming an actor. Anyway, that's 1953, and there was, of course, the NABBA Pro, like the year before, and they continued on with that. Arnold Dyson, he won that NABBA Pro, but realistically, guys, the NABBA Universe that year looked like Bill Pearl may have defeated him, so pretty hard to determine which title was more valuable. On to 1954, there was Enrico Thomas, he took the Mr. Universe, and Jim Park took the NABBA Pro, and it was, I guess, without any incidents. 1955, we have Mickey Hargitay. Mickey Hargitay. He was your 1955 Mr. Universe champion. And for those of you, once again, who really know your stuff, you're thinking, please, Marks Max Muscle, mention something else about Mickey Hargitay. All right. He went on to marry Jane Mansfield, a very famous actress at the time, and they became somewhat of a celebrity couple back in the 50s. In fact, Jane Mansfield, she was probably more famous than Mickey. But anyway, they had a movie, The Jane Mansfield Story, and guess who played Mickey Hargitay? I apologize, not Haggerty, it's Hargitay. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger. Come on, do it now, get to the chopper. Arnold Schwarzenegger, as we will see as this video progresses, become the only man to win the universe and play a man that won the universe in the movies. Do it. It was a TV movie though, so doesn't hold much water. On with the universe, 1955. Oh yes, we have 1955 Pro. So I guess the NABBA Mr. Universe outshined the Pro that year just because of the star power. But Leo Roberts, I believe his name was, Leo Roberts wins this. And Clarence Ross placed second. But man, oh man, I find that hard to believe. Clarence Ross, one of the greatest. Now on to 1956, we have Jack Dillinger. He actually took the Pro that year. And on the right side, we have Ray Schaefer. He was your Mr. Universe or your Amateur Universe championship winner that year. But the story, I think, in 1956 was that Bill Pearl made his return and he failed to take the title. He placed second. He won his class but lost to Jack Dillinger in the finals. And he vowed never to lose again. He vowed to make sure he was ready for every competition. And as we will see, well, I don't want to spoil the surprise. But anyway, 1957, we got to kind of speed this up a bit, guys, because we're only in the 50s. 10 minutes in, we're only in the 50s. And get your protein shakes ready. This is John Lees. He was your Mr. Universe, 1957. And the NABBA Pro went to Arthur Robin. Good bodybuilders there. Good year. 1958, Earl Clark. Just a short man. He won your Mr. Universe title, and he actually defeated a couple of good bodybuilders in Earl Menard, who is awesome, as we will see, and Paul Winter, one of my personal favorite bodybuilders. I actually did a video profile on this guy, so check that out. Reg Park, after how many years? 7 years? He made his return and easily won the title in 1958. Maybe not quite so easy as he did in 1951, but I mean, to take that many years off and come back and win a title, obviously the sport was not growing, or it has not grown since the early 50s, which leads me to believe that the supplements, things of that nature, had not really changed throughout the 50s. But anyway, turn the page on to 1959, and we have a brand new Mr. Universe champion in Len Sell. And Earl Maynard, once again, that Universe title slipped his grasp. He won his height class, but he failed to win the overall. On to the Pro, we have Bruce Randall, who actually defeated Paul Winter in the finals. But Bruce Randall, he was an incredible athlete. He was the guy that was, 300 and some pounds? He put on all this beef to do powerlifting or weightlifting, things of that nature, break records, and then boom, that's unbelievable, guys. This is a true bodybuilding transformation. This is unbelievable. Back in the late 50s, 1959, unbelievable. On to 1960, new decade, new champion. We have Henry Downs, the bearded man to your left. He took the NABBA amateur title that year. And to your right is Paul Winter. Like I said, guys, so proud of this man. 1960, he became the best bodybuilder on earth by winning the biggest title, the NABBA Pro Mr. Universe title. Turn the page, 1961. And we have a return of Bill Pearl. He, of course, took the NABBA Pro that year. He wouldn't be messing around with no amateur competition. Of course, by now, the NABBA Pro, well established as a pecking order or what have you, a much higher title or a much more prestigious title than the original one. And it was Ray Roulege. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his last name, but I'm sure it's not the first and it won't be the last, but he's your amateur champion, your Mr. Universe champion. On to 1962, we have Joe Abenda. And I think I did a video on this guy. Pretty sure I've done videos on a lot of these old Universe champions. And in the Pro that year, 1962, was Len Sell, a guy that won the amateur, I believe it was 1959. So yeah, he was a good bodybuilder. Has a Dorian Yates look about him. Could be his father. Now on to 1963. Winning the Pro Universe that year was Joe Abenda, a guy we just seen. And winning the Mr. Universe, the Amateur Universe, was Tom Sansone. And this guy was unbelievable. I know I've done videos on him. He retired, so he won the Mr. Universe, very prestigious prize, and then called it a day. So you got to respect this guy. Unbelievable development, and you have to think, if he continued on his career and if he was around today, these days, this day and age, with the supplements, things of that nature, he would have been unbelievable. 1964, to your left, we have John Houellette. He took the amateur title that year, and winning the Pro title was finally Earl Maynard. He got his NABBA Pro Mr. Universe title under his belt. He actually defeated a very young Serge Nabret. So food for thought. Serge Nabret was in the pack that year. And after his big win, Earl Maynard went on to bigger and better things, I guess you could say. He went on to IFBB, and he actually got victories over the likes of Sergio Oliva. So definitely something that you could brag about. It could be an understatement. 1965, we finally see the return of Reg Park. By gar, it's been a while. He won the NABBA Pro, of course. Paul Winter, you can see there. He took his class, lost the overall to Park. And Elmo Santiago, good little bodybuilder there. He took the amateur title. 1966, the amateur Mr. Universe title was won by Chester Yorton. And of course, hold on a second, I'll get into it. And Paul Winter, as you can see there, what a development. What a development. He took his second NABBA Pro Mr. Universe title, so kudos to him. But back to old Chet Yorton there. He defeated Arnold Schwarzenegger. Come on, get me my big gun, do it, load it up. So yeah, Chet Yorton, that may have overshadowed the Paul Winter win, but I don't know, man. Paul Winter, 1966, this is premium. I can't imagine better genetics for this time. This is unbelievable. Throw on today's juice. Wow. It would be unbelievable. Fast forward to 1967, and this was a showdown. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Dennis Tinerino, they battled it out for the amateur Mr. Universe, and Arnold Schwarzenegger reigned supreme. He won his very first ever NABBA Mr. Universe title here. It was the amateur, but hey, quite a title to win. Bill Pearl made his return also in 1967 and took home, his third Mr. Universe title. 2 pro, of course, and 1 amateur. So Arnold, he won the amateur. Bill Pearl won the pro, and there they stood. And this was a dream showdown. And unfortunately, it was never meant to be. These guys never posed down. So here in 67, these are the only pictures of these two guys. And I gotta say, Bill Pearl sizes up very well against the Austrian Oak. And I know Arnold's, a lot smaller than he eventually got. But I mean, he's no small potatoes here. And Bill Pearl, he has a thickness and a muscle maturity about him that Arnold may have been in trouble if they ever did compete. But anyway, like I said, never meant to be. On to 1968, the return of the Austrian Oak, Arnold Schwarzenegger, this time with the absence of Bill Pearl, mind you. Arnold Schwarzenegger took home his very first ever NABBA Pro Universe title, and Dennis Tinerino, with the absence of Arnold in the amateur, he won that title. So kudos to Dennis Tinerino, 1968. And on to 1969, we have another great champion. And in this video, introduction to Boyer Coe. I've done many videos on this guy. What a great champion. And in my opinion, I think he missed the boat on perhaps a stellar acting career. I think he just had a charisma about him. Anyway, in the pro ranks, we had a showdown, a dream showdown. From your left to right, we have Serge Nabret, Arnold Schwarzenegger in the center there, and Dennis Tinerino. Like I said, what a showdown, guys. And you wouldn't be able to tell by this picture here, but Serge Nabret actually landed in third. With that type of development, should have won maybe. Dennis Tinerino, with all due respect to him, he placed second ahead of Serge. And the Austrian Oak, Arnold Schwarzenegger, reigned supreme. 1970, a brand new decade. Look at these two great champions. Do they need any introduction to you guys? Frank Zane represented the amateur title that year. And the Pro Universe went to Arnold Schwarzenegger once again. This was so many titles in a row, I was getting bored at this point. So I decided to blow this popsicle stand and go live with Joe. Come on, Joe. Let us go, Joe. So after that win, Arnold did leave the NABBA promotion to go to the IFBB. But of course, it is worth to mention that Arnold defeated his hero, his mentor, Reg Park. He defeated him. And of course, Dave Draper there. I mean, what a stellar lineup. The NABBA Universe, the NABBA Pro Universe, was truly the greatest title on earth. Or at least it would be, if Arnold had not lost to the Olympia champion in '69 in Sergio Oliva. But he got his victory back over Sergio Oliva. In the IFBB at the Mr. Olympia competition, thus making the Olympia the greatest title of all time, right? Well, I think one Bill Pearl, who you may forgot about, I think he would have something to say about that, and he did, in fact, do something about that in 1971 when he made his return. And you also may take note that Reg Park, he was also there. And this was the first time that Reg Park and Bill Pearl did battle on the bodybuilding stage. But it looked to me as if Reg Park, he was not in his prime. And he just did not have the size to compete against Bill Pearl. And also in the background is Sergio Oliva. And it actually came down to Bill Pearl and Sergio Oliva, with Reg Park placing third, of course. And Sergio Oliva, being an IFBB athlete, he represented at least a former Olympia title. And of course, Reg Park, he was a NABBA, he was a Universe, and Bill Pearl, he was the NABBA's last hope for keeping this title the biggest in bodybuilding. And he did, in fact, defeat Sergio Oliva. And some would say in 1971, the NABBA was still the biggest promotion in all of bodybuilding, considering that most people think that Arnold Schwarzenegger was ducking Bill Pearl in 1971. Because really, he should have competed there. Also in 1971, I hate to cut out time for the amateur title, it was Ken Waller. He took that title that year, and he was, very underrated. Chris Dickerson there, he won the short class. These two guys, some of the best legs, quads, and calf development, full complete legs in bodybuilding at that time. Go to 1972, and Frank Zane took the pro title in 1972. Keep that in mind. And it was Elias Petsas or Petsis. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name. Good physique though. Good physique for sure. But anyway, back to Frank Zane. He won in 72, and not to take anything away from him, he looked fantastic. This abs and thigh pose, the best in history, perhaps. But here's my major quarrel with this. He competed in 1972 and placed fourth at the Olympia. Now, for some strange reason, Sergio Oliva was disqualified from the 1971 IFBB Olympia competition because he competed in NABBA that year in 1971 for the Universe. And it was so ridiculous. He was there, he was in shape, he was posing with Arnold, and he was still disqualified. So how is it that Frank Zane won the NABBA that year in 72 and still was able to compete? I think there was some definite politics there protecting Arnold Schwarzenegger. 1973, you had Boyer Coe and Chris Dickerson, two great champions that represented the NABBA promotion. It was Boyer Coe that captured the pro title, and Chris Dickerson with the amateur, and of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger in the IFBB. He was dominating there. But I mean, this was still two great bodybuilders. And food for thought. Reg Park competed for his last time in this event. Anyway, on to 1974. We have Roy Duval. He is to your right there. He captured the amateur title. And the pro title that year went to Chris Dickerson. And he actually defeated the former champion in Boyer Coe. What a showdown that must have been. I mean, these two guys, unbelievable development for their time. I gotta say, I think Chris might be beating him in the back development. A little bit better in the lat insertions, things of that nature, but I think Boyer Coe might have him in the arms. There's your, that's the one and only comparison we're going to do in this video. 1975, Boyer Coe would make his return, and he recaptured his NABBA Pro Universe title here. It was Ian Lawrence that took the amateur title that year. 1976, we had Shiru Sugita. He won the NABBA Amateur Universe. And looky loose, guys, it is Serge Nabret. He won the NABBA Pro. And pictured to your far left, that's actually Kozo Sudo. I've done a video on him, and Shigeru, if I'm not mistaken. Two fantastic bodybuilders. Must have been the fall of Saigon in 75, 76? Yeah, somewhere around there. Anyway, on to 1977. We had Bertil Fox, a great champion, representing the NABBA Amateur title that year. And the NABBA Pro went to Tony Emmett. Big dude, big dude. On to 1978. We have Dave Johns representing the amateur title, and Bertil Fox returned this year and captured the NABBA Pro title. So, food for thought. He defeated Serge Nabret, rather, at that event. 1978, NABBA Pro Universe. 1979, we have Amet Anunlu, and of course, Bertil Fox. As you can see, Bertil Fox won 2 NABBA Pros in a row. Been quite some time since somebody did that, but he never did capture any more NABBA Pro universes, or amateur universes for that matter. He went on to the IFBB, and the rest is history, and unfortunate history at that for one Bertil Fox. It was Bill Richardson taking the amateur universe title that year, with Tony Pearson winning the pro. Tony Pearson, excellent bodybuilder. 1981 saw John Brown capture the amateur title. And keep in mind, guys, 1981, there was Franco Colombo winning the Olympia title. So at that point, the NABBA Pro could have actually overthrown that champion, in my opinion, because it was Robbie Robinson. And in 1981, Robbie Robinson, he was in his prime. So for a little while, the sun came out for the NABBA promotion, and it was a dark day for the IFBB. And that was the year I was born. How about that? 1982, John Brown would repeat and become a 2-time NABBA Amateur Universe, or a Mr. Universe champion. And that year in 1982, the NABBA promotion saw one of its greatest champions that ever held this title in Edward Kowak. And this guy was unbelievable. Keep in mind, Chris Dickerson was the Olympia champion that year. And I gotta say, would have been close between them two. So the sun was out for a couple of years for NABBA. 83, John Brown tried to get his 3rd amateur title in a row, Amateur Universe, but it was not meant to be. Jeff King became the 1983 Mr. Universe champion, and the NABBA Pro once again went to Edward Kowak. 2 great champions that year representing the NABBA promotion. I have to say, Samir Banu may have been shaking in his little tiny posing trunks. 1984 had Brian Buchanan represent the Mr. Universe title. This guy, unbelievable. Smallest waistline, waist to arm ratio anyway, of all time. NABBA Pro, once again, the 3rd time in a row, went to Edward Kowak. Unbelievable string of wins there. 1985, Tim Belknap, and I apologize if I get his last name incorrect. Difficult one to say. The NABBA Pro, is it any wonder? Edward Kowak became a 4-time champion. And I think that's a record. I mean, Bill Pearl won 4 titles, but only one was the amateur. Only 3 were pro. So, Edward Kowak, I think he's your I was going to say IFBB. You're a NABBA Mr. Universe champion, and NABBA Pro at that. 1986, your Mr. Universe title went to Charles Claremont. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of this guy. One of the most aesthetic bodybuilders of all time. The NABBA Pro that year went to Lance Dreyer, a fantastic bodybuilder. And interesting about Lance Dreyer, he used to compete in the IFBB. I think he was at the 82 and 83 Olympias, if I'm not mistaken. It was those 2 years. And Edward Kowak, they had very similar physiques, and Edward Kowak, he left the NABBA promotion 1 year prior to 86. So kind of contrasting careers, but very similar physiques, in my opinion. 1987 had Basil Francis represent the Mr. Universe or the Amateur Universe title. And the NABBA Pro went to Olive Anus, or as I kind of like to call him sometimes, joking around, Olive Anus. And if you're wondering whatever happened to Jeff King, he lost to Olive Anus that year. And I gotta say, he just was not the same old Jeff King of a couple of years before. 1988, Victor Terra took the Mr. Universe amateur title. The NABBA Pro went to Charles Claremont that year, and food for thought, he did not compete in 87, did Charles Claremont. What a physique this is, guys. Wow, unbelievable. 1989, it was Matt DeFresna to represent the universe, the amateur universe, and the NABBA Pro once again went to Charles Claremont, but in my opinion, this was somewhat controversial, considering Edward Kowak had returned from the IFBB to recapture his Pro Universe title at that, and he lost to Charles. But I find that very difficult and hard to believe, considering how thick and big Edward Kowak looked here. Fresh from the IFBB, this guy has never looked so good as he did here in 89. So, somewhat controversial. 1990, a brand new decade. Peter Reed represented the NABBA amateur title, and Charles Claremont returned to capture his third NABBA Pro title in a row. And then he elected to up and leave. He uprooted and went on to IFBB with minimal success, I guess you could say, with all due respect. 1991 had Rainer Gerbrach. I know I get his last name wrong. There was 1,000 competitors that year, so Rainer defeated a lot of people. The pro title in 1991 went to Victor Terra. We seen him earlier, so kudos to him. He won a NABBA Universe Amateur and a NABBA Pro. Kind of looks like Greg Doucette, in a way. 1992 had Mustafa Muhammad win the amateur title. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of him before. And the guy beside him, I have to say, he must have placed second. I think that's Edmundo Lancia. But his legs look bigger than Mustafa, and Mustafa Muhammad's known for big legs. The NABBA Pro title that year, it was a good little showdown. You can see Edward Kowak there and Victor Terra, actually. Neither of them two guys won. Edward placed second with Victor in third. It was Peter Reed that actually took the NABBA Pro title that year. He was the amateur champion in 1990. Anyway, on to 1993. We have Dennis Francis representing the amateur title with a returning Edward Kowak, a return as champion. He's been trying to get his 5th title for a few years now, and he did. And if you're keeping count, 5 is a record. Edward Kowak, a 5-time NABBA Pro, Mr. Universe champion, and nobody ever defeated that record. So kudos to Edward Kowak. That's his claim to fame for sure. The following year, in 1994, saw Nick Van Beek win the NABBA Universe Amateur, and the NABBA Pro went to John Torelli. Good, fantastic physique on John Torelli. 1995, Grant Clamesha won the amateur title, and Brian Buchanan came out of nowhere to win the NABBA Pro. He hadn't competed since the 80s. Unbelievable. 1996, Federico Faccirini won the amateur title, and the NABBA Pro went to Sean Davis. And food for thought, Dennis James back in the 90s. Dennis James placed second at the NABBA Pro Universe. 1997 saw Grant Thomas win the amateur title with Eddie Elwood winning the Pro. And Eddie Elwood put on a clinic. He won the title in 97, 98, 99, 2000, and 2001 for good measure, tying the record of Edward Kowak. But keep in mind, he tied Edward's record. He did not defeat it. Nobody did. Now, of course, we have to backtrack a little bit back to 98 for the amateur winners. There was Gary Lister, and 99 had Franco Mallet win the amateur title, and in 2000 it was Sergey Ogorodnikov. I know I got that one wrong. And in 2001 it was Stefan Mahler that took the amateur title. On to 2002, we have, and here's another one to pronounce, 2002 amateur champion was Castanino Galazzo, and the pro winner that year was Gary Lister, the 98 amateur champion. 2003 had Hassan Al-Saka win the amateur title, and Gary Lister once again won the pro title, becoming a 2-time NABBA Pro champion and a 3-time altogether, if you count his amateur winnings. Anyway, on to 2004. Steve Sinton took the Amateur Universe title that year, and in the pro division, the pro universe went to Hassan Al-Saka. We've seen him earlier win the amateur title. 2005, Charles Mario. Fantastic physique on that guy. Fantastic for sure. And we will see him again. In the pro division, it was that same guy from earlier. And I had a difficult time pronouncing his name, so what a rare treat to get to try it again. It is Sergey Ogorodnikov. So, Sergey won the title, the pro title, on to 2006. And here's a couple of champions here. Thomas Burrs for the amateur, and Steve Sinton captures both pro and amateur. He captured the pro here in 2006. 2007, your amateur championships went to Orazio Salvatore, and your pro went to Orazio Salvatore. That's right, guys. For the first time in NABBA history, NABBA Universe history, somebody won the same or both titles in 1 year. Crazy, crazy. 2008, and looky loose, it's Lionel Bayecki. He was actually a NABBA Mr. Universe champion in the amateur title. And in the pro ranks, we had Alessandro Savi. He was your NABBA Pro champion. Looks like the amateur was better that year. Anyway, Martin Castle won the 2009 Amateur Universe, and the Pro Universe went to Alexei Netasonov in 2010. They actually took a step back as far as size is concerned, it looks like, and Miha Zupan took the Mr. Universe title, the amateur title, and in the pro ranks, it was Charles Mario. I told you we'd see him again. 2011, Paulo Limo Santos took the amateur title, and the pro champion that year was Sangram Shagul, and I've made videos on this guy before. He is awesome, awesome. Superstar from India. 2012, we have Andy Polhill. Andy Polhill. He was your amateur champion. And for a second year in a row, the pro, NABBA Pro Mr. Universe champion was Sangram Shagul. I used to be able to say his last name at one time. And that's 2012. On to 2013. And once again, much like earlier when the one guy won both titles, this is a little bit different. One guy won the amateur Mr. Universe, but there was no pro. No pro title that year. For the first time since, oh gosh darn it, what was I? Was it 52, 53? I just told you guys, I forget. Anyway, I'm sure most of you guys, probably darn near all of you guys, recognize this man. Lee Priest. This was the last time he competed. He won the NABBA Mr. Universe title. What a prestige. So in the long, in the grand scheme of things, in the long run, he never won the Olympia, no. But he won the same bloody title. Arnold Schwarzenegger and, Steve Reeves and bloody hell, even John Grimmick, you could say. And yeah, Lee Priest even had some strawed glutes, as you can plainly see. 2014, Barney Duplessis, he took the amateur title, and in the pro ranks, it was Dave Titterton. Titterton. Great name. 2015, Paul Stewart takes your amateur championships. And is it just me, or does he look like Michael Berryman from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Maybe not, maybe not. Also in 2015, your pro title went to Tony Mount. He may have a Berryman look about him as well. But with all due respect, 2016, look, it's Fabian Mayer. Fabian Mayer. He's a men's classic physique division competitor now. I'm sure you guys have seen him. Very tall man. Yeah, he won a NABBA Amateur Universe title. 2016 also, Tony Mount wins 2 in a row, 2 pro titles in a row, so kudos to him. 2017, another gentleman you guys may recognize, Lee Sung-chul. He won your Amateur Universe, and the pro title that year went to Sean Joseph Tavernier. So kudos to him. And we're winding down here, guys. This was a long one. Hope you had a protein shake. 2018, Lawlin Ganon. So he took your 2018 Amateur Mr. Universe title. And kudos to Sung-chul Lee. He took the pro title. So he won the Amateur 2017. Here in 2018, he is your NABBA Pro Mr. Universe champion. And then, as many of you do know, he went to the IFBB. And to be honest, I don't know if the judges are giving him a fair shake or not. Could be because he was a NABBA guy. Who knows? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I was only able to find information leading up until 2019. So 2020, 2021 gets a little bit hazy. So Jack Booker, he will be your final Mr. Universe, Amateur Universe champion announced on this video. And the final guy here is Josh Malley, a big giant of a man. Huge, big, tall dude. He is your 2019 NABBA Pro Mr. Universe champion. So there you have it, guys. From great legendary champions like John Grimmick and Steve Reeves, up until more modern day legends like your Charles Claremonts and, of course, your Edward Coax. The star-studded lineup of bodybuilders that represented this title would rival any title, and that includes the Mr. Olympia title, with all due respect. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did. Setting it up took a little while, but I'm sure it will be worth it. Make sure you have a protein shake, guys. If you haven't already, you should have one now. Hit thumbs up on the video. It helps greatly, like you would never understand. And of course, have a great day.